What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Turn on the Jets Live. I'm your host, Steven Zantz, joined by my co-host, Steven Russo. Very stress-free, even though it ended up being a little stressful for us Jet fans who were rooting for the Vikings yesterday, Steven. No game yesterday. How you feeling? How you doing?
I'm good, man. I'm good. How's everything in your world?
Everything is good. I always say it's like no stress about the Jets on Sunday. But obviously we're rooting for the we were rooting for the Vikings to beat the Bills. We were rooting for the Browns to beat the Dolphins. Of course, they were lifeless, and they teased us early on when they had that nice drop, that nice play in the beginning, and then it all went down there downhill. But like, I'm so hyped that the Jets are back. I know we were talking about this last week. We're just like, I'm gonna miss watching them. You live for the stress, you live for the fun, and it was like weird. But yeah, how you doing?
I'm good, dude. Yeah, it was like you said earlier today when we were talking, like you're rooting for the Vikings and as if it were a Jets game, and you kind of felt like that. And it was cool. It was refreshing to have a bye week where I got to balance my feelings for like what my fantasy team does versus what I want to happen in the AFC to, kind of strengthen the Jets position for this hopefully impending playoff race. But overall, I mean, it's a good day. I think it's funny because you think about it and you're like, back before the season, we were sitting here and we were talking as we're, a lot of Jets fans saying, will the Jets be able to get off the schneid and break the division losing streak? And sure enough, man, here we are. And the Jets are sitting 6-3 with a divisional showdown against the Pats coming up this week, with not only a chance to go 3-1 in the division, but a chance to take first place outright. How insane is that? Like that we're actually here. So it just feels good to kind of have this and be in it. And, as excited, as amped up as I am for this Pats game, it's still the Pats. And I still get that little, the butterflies in my stomach and things going on in my chest too that make me nervous about this, because it does mean so much. And there's a big part of me that just wants to say, this is just another game, but at the same time, man, it does just mean so much more, not only for what's at stake, but because it's Bill Belichick, because it's the Patriots playing in Foxborough. There's a whole lot of stuff going on in this game. So pretty amped up. Good day yesterday, though, stress-free, we'll say, at least more than usual anyways, but it was fun. I'm doing good.
Yeah, agreed. And we actually will be joined midway through the show by Connor Hughes of SNY, who covers both the Jets and Giants, but formerly of the Athletics. So it'll be super fun to talk to him. So a lot of our, questions will be coming more towards the back half of the show. But for right now, we'll talk about some storylines like leading up to this Pats game, which the first thing I want to talk about, which I think is crazy, is that if the Jets win, obviously they have sole possession of first place, like you said, because Miami's on the bye and they both would be 7-3. But if the Jets lose and Buffalo beats Cleveland, we're in last place. Like, think about just what that means and how, like, it could change the trajectory of the season. Like, you have the chance of being a sole possession of first place because of tiebreakers, because at that point you would have beaten both Buffalo and Miami and split New England. But getting swept by New England and, having the same record as them and Buffalo getting a game on us, that would just be so much pain. Think about all the fun and success we had. And it's not to say the season will be over, but like, I know we were talking about this in our Slack over the last like 24 hours. It's like, if Zach can't beat the Patriots,
Yeah.
season's over. It's not actually, but like, what are your thoughts about that? Like, just what this season could be based on what the outcome of this game, because this is the most important of the season. I know we said this last time they played New England, but now it really is, because we got the monkey off our back of beating a contender. We've had a chance to heal up. Max Mitchell's returned to practice this week. So there is a chance that he can return and play right tackle. I mean, I don't know what they would necessarily want to do because of the way he actually has been decent, but I think he'd be better suited as a swing tackle. But like, how do you feel about this?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, this game just will always mean more. Even if they were both, 3-6 going into this game, I think it would still mean more just because it's New England. But now when you amplify it, having all of this behind it, it obviously is just a huge deal. So having so much implication on this game, knowing that it's Bill Belichick and really knowing what happened 2 weeks ago, and kind of that being the one, downside to what's going on over the last 6 weeks, 7 weeks. It's obviously it carries extra weight. So I think the salt in the wound part about the loss to New England back, 2 weeks ago was really the fact that I think we all came away saying anyone with eyes can see that the Jets are the better team. And It's just frustrating that they gave it away. You really came away feeling like that was one that the Jets lost, not the one that the Patriots won. So knowing that, and that's part of balancing it all, is that you feel like this just should happen, and that the timing is right, and that everything is kind of teeing up for this to be that defining moment. But you also know you got all these years of history being a Jets fan and what this could actually mean. So you can go back and kind of pull from those memories as well. But I think this, we'll get into predictions obviously a little bit later on, but it could be a sloppy game. But in all reality, I feel like this is one that the Jets should kind of handle with ease. And you also factor in the fact that both teams coming off a bye week, which, typically Bill Belichick kind of performs well in those situations. He is obviously the greatest coach that we've seen. And Robert Saleh, we really only have one year to base that on, which I think last year they came off the bye and played New England and got smoked. So, just a lot of things at play here, but ultimately I think this game just means so much more just because of everything going on around it.
Yeah, and I think the feel is different this time around. I know obviously they lost, a couple of weeks back at home, but like you said, I think the Jets know that they let one get away. They know that they could have won that game. It wasn't like one of those typical Bill Belichick fashion games, like the Sam Ghost game. The Jets are riding high after some momentum, after struggling a little bit, and then they lay an egg and lose like 33-0 at home with Sam Darnold throwing 3 interceptions or whatever it was. I don't even remember at this point. I tried to erase from my memory. They lost by 5. Zach threw 3 brutal interceptions. I can't emphasize that enough. And I think the approach will be obviously different, especially given the success they had against Buffalo running the football last week, or I guess 2 weeks ago at this point. But I think that they know that they could take them. I think Connor McGovern had a nice quote. He was just saying how this game's obviously important, but they feel that every time they're on the field, that they're as good, if not better than everybody they're playing against. And you've got to love that mentality. And I've had my gripe with Connor McGovern. I felt like he threw Zach under the bus a couple of times when he was a rookie, but he said that everybody believes in him. And I think Brax also said they have extreme confidence in him. So I think that there was a perfect time for this team to recharge the batteries, to assess some of the things that they weren't doing well, to figure out ways to improve on the things they were doing well and perfect them, which we've been saying, there hasn't been that much to criticize with this team through the first 9 games of the season. So it's I'm very interested to see what Zach looks like. And I think I alluded to this in our last show, that it took Fields a couple of weeks to really get, his feet moving and getting comfortable, in his second year. And I think Zach is now at that point where we started to see Fields really turn it on. I think it was in the New England game is when he really started to look pretty good. So I'm hoping what they do is that this game plan is they take a lot of the things that Chicago was doing well. I think they need to design runs for Zach. I know he's not as physically gifted as Fields in terms of being 6'4" and, having that weight, but it's football, man. Every player is risking their body at every single play. Zach should be running the ball. And I've been banging on the table for this for basically since the end of last year, because I felt like at the end of last year, they were trying to incorporate that into his game and get him to take off. But I think we just need to see him playing smarter and more of the first half against New England. Obviously, we don't want to see the second half with those back-breaking interceptions. But I think that this team is super amped up. They know how important this game is. They know that you get this game, you really control your own destiny. I mean, in my opinion, they have to do is go 5-3 the rest of the way. That's 11 wins. Yeah, think about this, 11-6. What? This is not something that even the most optimistic Jets fan, someone like yourself or Dalvin would even think. Dalvin's at 10-7. I think you said 9-8. The fact that they can go 11-6 and they can lose 3 games down the stretch to get there. What? Yeah. This is crazy, man.
I know. And there's so much to unpack here. And I think one of the biggest things is I think a really refreshing thing about this entire coaching staff is their ability to self-scout and self-reflect. And I think we've seen that, right? You've seen that from the defensive side of the ball and the changes that they've made post Quinnen Williams blow up on the sideline against Cincinnati in week 3. And then you see things like it from just the New England game to last week versus Buffalo, where they really put such an emphasis on Zach Wilson getting the ball out quickly and obviously the running game. And what's even more refreshing is that they didn't really deter from that, even though they got down 14-3 and typical Jets would have gone into full panic mode and they would end up losing that game by 20. yet they stick with it. They continue to do the things that they know that they're good at, and they have trust in their defense and in their players to go out and continue to make plays and keep them in the game, which is great. The other point is that, yes, you're absolutely right. And really the weight of this game is so large because it's weird how this season has played out to where in August, we looked at it like, holy shit, here's the gauntlet of the first half of the season. And then it kind of opens up down the stretch and maybe, the Jets can have that window to, stack up a few wins, whatever. Well, in reality, it's kind of changed to where now the Jets are 6-3, but when you look at the remaining schedule, it's not as easy as we all thought, especially that road schedule. All 3 games, all 3 divisional opponents on the road. Seahawks on the road does not look like a walkover like we would have thought it was before the season, right? You play at the Vikings, who just knocked off the Bills and are 8-1. That's not going to be an easy task. So
yeah,
you're going to say.
Well, I was just going to say about the Vikings because they're a good team. I
Yeah.
think that they proved themselves, especially gutting out that game against Buffalo. But there's a path to like if you contain Justin Jefferson,
yeah,
you could beat them.
They're beatable.
Kirk is like always prone to big mistakes.
Yes.
I mean, it's just that he's a good quarterback. He's not a great quarterback. I mean, we hope that Zach could be like as solid as him at worst case scenario, but they're I think their point differential this year is 35 points. It's the worst since 1960 or 1970 or something like that. I also heard that stat today. So they're a good team. They're not like this. They're not the Eagles. The Eagles, I think right now are the best team in football. I think Kansas City second. I think even Buffalo, despite losing that game, still third, just because they were on a roll in the beginning. I know it's softened up a little bit for them, but they do have some injuries. But sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. I just want to chime in about that.
No, you're totally fine, and I get it, and I do, and that's the thing. It's like the caveat really to this year is that you honestly feel like the Jets, and rightfully so, the Jets can hang with any team on their schedule. There's no question about that. And then you kind of look broader scale, and you look at it, and you say, okay, this AFC is really ripe for the picking. Of all the years, football is a crazy sport no matter what. Let's just put it that way. So no matter how good a team looks, any team can be beat on any given Sunday. That's always going to be the case. However, specifically this season, you look at the Titans, take the Chiefs to a 1-score game in Kansas City on the back of Malik Willis throwing 10 passes, for 70 yards, whatever the hell he threw.
Yep.
You know what I mean? The Jets already knocked off the Dolphins. They already knocked off the Bills. The AFC West just isn't what we thought it was going to be. Even the AFC North, which we thought it was going to be a gauntlet. Well, even the games the Jets lost, you really kind of felt like, listen, we do a few things here, we're in them. So there's just so much around here where the Jets really can write their own ticket, and you kind of see a path. And again, I'm not saying that they are going to make this Bengals type run to the Super Bowl. However, this does have, and I know Joe Caporoso alluded to it, it does kind of have that 2015 feel where it feels like the conference is anybody's game and it's out there to be had. And when you have a team like the Jets where, in all honesty, their biggest question mark is the quarterback and whether or not he can protect the football, that's when you have a defense that's built like this and a run game that's built like this, those things travel well. And that's kind of the stuff that equates to potentially doing some damage come January and February, which I'm not saying it's going to happen, but when you kind of look at that macro view and then bring it all down to what that implies for this game at New England, man, it's again, that's where I start getting I get the butterflies and I can't stop thinking about it.
Yeah, totally. And I think Joe's piece was really good because it gave a lot of perspective as to how we got here, what the buildup has been to this point, because it essentially was 11 years of ineptitude, because I guess what you could say is 2011, they started out, 8-5, and then they lost 3 straight to end the year. And then that's essentially when everything kind of fell apart.
That was the beginning of the end.
Yeah, beginning of the end, which sucked. And 2015 was man, if they could have just beat Buffalo, the team was really good for 1 year. It was very veteran heavy, which meant it wasn't a sustainable way to build long term. There obviously were some young pieces. I mean, Mo Wilk obviously was a young piece who they locked up after that season. But the problem was he was never the same player. And I think it was just kind of mailing it in. It's kind of like a Kenny Galladay situation where he just literally got paid and doesn't care anymore. But you look at the teams in the conference, obviously Miami is very good, but I don't think their defense is that good. Their offense is great. And Tua deserves all the credit. And I said this last week as someone who was not a Tua believer. I think he's a good quarterback. I think schematically it works for him because they get the ball out quick. He has dynamic wide receivers. I mean, Tyreek Hill to me deserves to be in the MVP conversation. He's tremendous. I think right now it's Mahomes' award to lose if he continues to play at the trajectory he is. That they are the best team in the AFC right now. He's been great, but Tyreek is right there. And I think he's allowed, Tua to be more comfortable and not have to force throws and do things short. And that's some of the things I want to see with Zach, even though Zach has the arm to go deep. It's just make things easy for the quarterback versus trying to, force the big play, which is something that he's been guilty of doing throughout his career. And we've seen improvements in some of these wins where he's not doing those things to force the big play. He's allowing things to come to him, playing within the offense. And I think he did a really good job in the Buffalo game. I felt like he was just looking for the right reads. He was trying to get the ball out quickly. And I think that's going to be everything they're telling him to do, because when he holds the ball for too long, that's when he gets into trouble. So I'm hoping that first New England experience will really shape how he's going to play this week, because, it's super important, this game. And I just need to see improvement, especially against his opponent, regardless of who the quarterback is, who's on the other team. This coach has always made young quarterbacks' lives miserable, and I need to see him take that next step.
Yeah. And I think one thing that I think about in regards to Zach going against Bill Belichick is, I think in the first outing last year, right, the second game of Zach's rookie year, I think he was confused, and Belichick did things to confuse him. And that's why he threw the 4 picks and why the Jets lost the game. When you think about how bad this game 2 weeks ago was against New England for Zach, I don't think it was Belichick really confusing him. Belichick obviously has the history of doing that. That's what he does to young quarterbacks. However, I think Zach's problems were all Zach related, right? I think he made, really 2 bad decisions and 1 bad throw, right? When you think about it, like the pick that he threw across the middle going to Ty Johnson, that was 1 bad throw. He threw it off his back foot. He had him. They would have had the first down if he hits the pass, but he throws off his back foot. He airmails it. Guy gets a pick. The next 2 are really bad decisions, right? Or even, we're really bad throws. So you look at it and you're like, the throw to the sideline, he made the right decision to get rid of the ball. He just didn't put it in the stands where he should have. He, leaves a little too much on it, and the guy picks it on the sideline. And then the third decision, again, he makes the bad decision into traffic, where he throws it, into quadruple coverage with Tyler Conklin. There's no chance of completing that. So I think Zach has the ability, obviously, to play within structure, to play within the game plan, to do the things that Saleh and LaFleur are asking him to do. And I think, the other good part of that is that the Jets move the ball against New England, and they can move the ball on anyone. And they've proven to be able to wear these teams down over the course of the game. And it's funny how the narratives get built as the season goes along, and the Jets have now just kind of become this team where it's like the fourth quarter is very much their strength, and their defense is built to last and can be there in the fourth quarter to shut these teams down. And their offense is exactly the same, where that's built to last, and the running game can wear you down in the fourth quarter, to the tune of where the Jets, get the ball on their own 4-yard line against the Bills and then run the ball, 7 times in a row for 70 plus yards until they ultimately have to throw one, or I forget the numbers, whatever they were, but the only throw they have to make really is to Mims to get the 3rd down. So you see all these things and you're like, man, this really can happen. And I think if the Jets come out and they play their game, there's no question in my mind that they should win this game and beat New England.
Yeah, just, play good defense, run the ball, avoid turnovers. It's that simple.
Yeah.
I know this has been mentioned by Joe before. It's like, that's been a trend of how teams are winning in the league. Like you said, Malik Willis, I think also a lot of the things that you've seen, not from Miami necessarily, but that's how San Francisco wins the game.
Yep.
I don't believe necessarily predicated on big game passing. I mean, they do obviously have a dynamic weapon in Debo. Now they have Christian McCaffrey, who's tremendous. But the funniest thing is about Christian McCaffrey is they get Elijah Mitchell back. He gets 18 carries, where McCaffrey gets 10, which to me makes no sense. It's like you trade all those assets and you have this electric playmaker, you should be using McCaffrey a little bit more. But it's interesting. And I think, you just want to see growth. You want to see the mistakes that we've seen for so long, dating back to Zach's first start, to start to be minimalized. I'm not saying he can't throw interceptions. I think he's going to, because that's part of his game when you're taking chances And you're seeing that with Josh Allen right now, who's leading the league in interceptions, which is crazy to think. But guys who do that versus the guys of like the Alex Smiths of the world, I'm trying to think whoever. I mean, Aaron Rodgers also plays a style where he never would want to like throw interceptions. He would only take chances where he knows he can win. Mm-hmm. And I just want to see what Zach does and how he responds, because these next 8 games are so critical for really the trajectory of this franchise, because, he's a second pick, and assuming he doesn't pull, like a Nathan Peterman, like ever down the stretch, he's probably going to be the starter next year. I mean, that's really where it would come to, where you would think, maybe they would consider, moving off him, or at least at the very least, making him the, incumbent quarterback, but bring in someone like a Garoppolo who they could push him, because he's realistically going to be a free agent, because they're going to run it back with Trey Lance, just to see what they have, because they didn't invest a lot of draft assets into it. But like, that's what I think is a realistic possibility if Zach doesn't show the growth that they're hoping. But like, let's all root for that. Like, I know you want to see a more aesthetically pleasing quarterback play, because that's what's fun. That's what like draws attention on fantasy games. So it's like, I get it, but like at the end of the day, it's just baby steps. Year 3 could be the lead. I don't know that. I can't predict the future, but I think just don't be so quick to write him off. But at the same time, he should be better. I agree with all of that.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I do too. In the grand scheme of things, though, I think Zach just has to continue to play within structure and be the game manager that the Jets are asking him to be. I think right now, this team is probably better than anyone could have anticipated, but it's still built the way that they wanted to build it, which is, like you said, strong run game, strong defense. And they're asking Zach to just not lose the games for them. Please just don't be the reason that we lose this game. Don't turn the ball over, play smart. And I think if that trend continues, then Zach absolutely earns his right to be the starter coming in next year. And I think if you just be the guy that can manage the game and play this so that you're not the reason the Jets lose for the rest of the way, that's good enough. And then once you get to year 3, that's where we expect him to take that bigger leap. I think if you look at it kind of in historical context, really it's very similar to the first 2 Sanchez years, right?
It really is. These parallels are crazy.
The difference is the team around him, because that 2009-2010 team was so veteran heavy and so built to win immediately, whereas on the backs of veterans. The difference here is that the Jets' success is on the backs of these young guys and these rookies, which is obviously awesome. But in reality, the Jets were a middle of the road team in 2009 for much of the year until, they get a random chance to make the playoffs at 7-7. They rip off 2 straight. All of a sudden, this defense, this running game, Sanchez kind of gets hot. They make a run to the AFC Championship. 2010 was obviously a little different, but Sanchez was asked to do exactly this. Now, I think there were a few games where Mark Sanchez in 2010 was absolutely the reason that they won those. You think about kind of that middle of the season, I just saw the highlights. I think today is the 12-year anniversary of the Browns overtime game. Like, Sanchez was a reason there against Detroit. Against Houston, he had a comeback. He played really well in that Pittsburgh game where they won, so he was the reason. But I think in all reality, I think he threw 17 touchdowns and like 9 or 10 picks that year. And, maybe for 3,000 yards or right around that area, but still that was a run first team that played strong defense. So the connections between the two are extremely similar. And then, then you looked at 2011 and they expected Sanchez to take an even bigger leap. Now, they didn't really help him that year. They let Braylon go. They signed Plaxico Burress. They let Jericho Cotchery go. They brought in Derek Mason, all those things. So it's just funny how the kind of correlation and the historical parallels there are pretty interesting. But ultimately, I still think that, like you said, unless he has a Nathan Peterman like finish here, which is a great reference, by the way. But unless he finishes like that, I think he's absolutely earned the right to be started next year. And we'll see what happens if they bring in some competition, because I don't think it's going to be Mike White or Flacco, or I don't think it should be, put it that way.
I mean, I think that they do want to get a better look at Mike White if Zach were to falter, because that was the whole thing that Salah said, why he was elevated to QB2 and Flacco's being a healthy scratch on game day. But at the end of the day, they know that the ceiling is very limited with him. Like, we saw obviously the high with the Bengals, but he kind of regressed after that. Like, I think people love that memory so much because it was such an unexpected win when your quarterback goes down. There was all this hope for a rookie, and then this guy who never played a game in his career. I mean, he obviously played half of that New England game, but never had a full start. Had this 400-yard game, but also threw a bunch of interceptions in that game, and then he was awful in the Buffalo game. I know he got hurt in the Colts Thursday night game, and he did throw a touchdown before he went down, but like that's not what they need to be doing. They need someone, if they're not going to be with Zach, it's got to be someone who's proven that they can run an offense effectively and also not lose you games. And I know Jimmy's the guy. The one guy I want to say, because I know Connor's going to be joining us in a few minutes, is Derek Carr would be the guy to look at. And I feel like it'll cause some eye rolls, anyone who's listening or watching this. But the Raiders are 2-7. I was reading a whole thing. They can get off him if they cut him, and it's like $6 million dead cap, but he's making $40 million. There's a chance with how their season's going, and Josh McDaniels didn't handpick him. He's been on the team for almost, I think, 9 years or 10 years, or whatever it may be, that he could be someone the Jets would look to. I mean, he has a similar skill set to Zach. I think Zach has a stronger arm than him, but he's somewhat mobile. But he's proven he can be a winner in this league. I don't want to have this Derek Carr discourse, but I think that's something to keep an eye on just because he could be available and, he's someone who's a legit NFL starter in this league.
Do you think that would be something that he would do to come and be a backup to start the season? In all reality, you're coming in for competition, right? So So, okay. Let me rephrase what I was trying to say. Okay.
I don't think that if they brought him in, he would be a backup who has to fight Zach for the snaps.
Yeah.
He would be the starter. I think if they did that, it means that they don't trust Zach long-term and they feel that Derek Carr would give them a better chance and elevate the ceiling of this team in 2023, because based on how we're starting and hopefully how we finish, this team is going to be, expected to be in the playoffs next year. We're hoping that the ceiling is higher with some of these young players, the return of ABT, the return of Breece Hall, whoever they may get in free agency in the draft, because at this point it's like tinkering and adding pieces because there's so much of a foundation here. And obviously whatever happens with Elijah Moore, which we'll definitely ask Connor about as well, because it's obviously been a polarizing topic. But if they were to go that route, which I don't necessarily know if what they will, but it is something just to keep an eye on. And I know people used to say to DJ Bienemy, who used to be on the beat, former guest of the show, because he would always say that's like what he could see Zach becoming. And people were like, nah, I don't want that. Yeah. Derek Carr was like a front runner to win MVP in 2016, his third season. Yeah. And then he got hurt and the Raiders ended up having to start. I think it was the guy who played for Michigan State, Connor Cook, in a playoff game. Yes. Obviously got smoked. But Carr is good, so we could drop this. It just was a thought.
Well, no, it's funny that you say that, because I'm starting to think because that's the thought that goes through your head now is okay, this Jets team is built to win. So if Zach isn't the guy, I really would prefer the veteran route as opposed to drafting another quarterback and hoping that.
Yeah, they wouldn't do that. This team is they can't go with that down that route.
But then you start to look at I'm thinking, okay, if Derek Carr were to come here, then what other teams would we be competing with? So you kind of start looking at it and you're like, okay, who's going to be in the market to draft one? Who could be in the market for a veteran? You look at the NFC South, all those teams are going to need quarterbacks, and you never know when Tom Brady's going to hang them up. But
oh my gosh,
then you got the Lions, you got Packers with Aaron Rodgers. You don't know how long that's going to last. Matt Stafford obviously not looking great with the Rams, the Cardinals, and Kyler Murray. What's going on there? The Niners are set. Geno has to at some point regress to the mean with Seattle.
Don't ever say that. That's my guy.
But you gotta how that's going. The Giants, 7-2, but it feels like smoke and mirrors. That's a house of cards right now. You really don't know. And Daniel Jones, obviously, I think there's some wiggle room there. So it's just funny to kind of go through to see, who the Jets could potentially be competing with in terms of signing a veteran if that was the route to go. But man, I can't believe you brought me down to this where we're talking about next season when we got a first place game on the docket here for this week. And this is what you're doing to me.
In my defense, there wasn't a game to talk about. So we had to obviously fill some time before our special guest joins. And we do have plenty of stuff that we want to ask him.
Yes.
So it definitely was more of a hypothetical because there wasn't that much to talk about, which is a good thing because on the bye, no drama, no, off the field injuries. You obviously saw what happened with Xavier McKinney on an ATV. You don't want that to happen. You want to come out of the bye week healthier than you left it, which it seems like with Max Mitchell coming back and Corey Davis is still day to day. I have a feeling he will return because I think what's it been now? 3 weeks since he got hurt? 4 weeks? I can't remember.
Denver
game? Yeah, Denver game. So it was the New England game. It was Buffalo, and then now. So
he's been out 3.5 weeks, really.
It'll basically be a month since he actually got hurt. So by the time Sunday comes around. So I think it was a similar injury to what Zach had. I think last year was like an MCL sprain. So nothing too serious, no actual damage, more just like bruising and swelling probably. I think it's more pain tolerance than anything else. So let's just hope that, they are healthier. And see, Max Mitchell was a, pleasant surprise. He was a 4th-round pick. He wasn't expected to play this year. It was more of someone who they were hoping long-term could be a starter and was like potentially a swing tackle. And when he was out there, he held his own. He wasn't a liability at right tackle, which was very pleasant to see. It seems like George Fant is not coming back anytime soon. I mean, he wasn't very good to begin with. And remember the whole thing in the summer, they should extend him. He was amazing in 2021. It seems like 2021 was probably his ceiling, and he's already, I think 30 at this point. So it's hard to imagine he's going to be able to replicate that, especially with his, chronic injury problems. So at the end of the day, I just want to see these guys come back. It sucks that 2 of the best players on the team got hurt or we lost for this season, but this team has been resilient with all the adversity that they've seen, dating back to the Cleveland game. They've shown an ability to really, really, be able to do things that we don't expect. So I'm hoping that it's going to continue as we get to this back half of the season, but, I'm so excited, 8 more games, meaningful football. We're finally going to get the In the Hunt graphic on the Sunday, or I guess, Thursday of Thanksgiving, which is something we're clamoring for about 1.5 years on
Amazing.
The show.
Since the inception of the show, since we've been with Turn on the Jets. Yeah, we've been just asking for that little fact, and the Jets have finally given it to us. So win or lose on Sunday. Yeah, you could definitely, we're going to be in the Hunt graphic. So that's a huge win for TOJ Live.
That's all we needed, right?
Yeah. And it's interesting, as we're waiting for Connor to join here, but I'm interested to ask him, when you speak about the O-line, kind of, how he sees it playing out when they do return to, in a quote unquote full health. Because we know obviously that unit is not fully healthy with the injuries that they've sustained. But when they do get Max Mitchell and George Fant back to full health, what he expects to see, because my thought is really, like you said, would be to see Mitchell get the nod at right tackle over Fant. I think Fant was obviously very good in 2021. He was better on the left side than he was on the right after Mekhi Becton went down, and they were able to move Morgan Moses over, into right tackle. But at right tackle, we saw Fant struggle quite a bit. Obviously he was bothered by that the injury that was kind of lingering from last season. But it's just very interesting to see kind of how that will shake out, because I think the one thing is really what this line has done thus far, given all the injuries, but also since what they've done plugging in Herbig, and what a pleasant surprise he's been. But without further ado, here we go. Connor's joined us.
Yeah, welcome, Connor. We're super excited to have you on the show, man. Hold on. You got to get the sound going. We have a little technical difficulties with Connor. I think he's on.
No, you're good. My bad. I do this all the time. This microphone SNY gate has a power button. I got to remember to turn on and off. But no, thank you guys for having me. I appreciate it.
We appreciate you
jumping on, man.
Yeah, for anybody who obviously doesn't know him, but if you're a Jets fan, I would assume that you know who Connor Hughes is. Covers the Jets and now the Giants for SNY, formerly The Athletic. Connor, how is it now? Both sides of town. How are you doing with that?
I'm enjoying it, man. It's a little bit different. I think what's tough for me is just the competitive nature of the job and the competitive nature of the field. And when you get into this, I mean, you grind and you bust your ass to be the best, right? I mean, that's kind of what you want to do. And the way that you put yourself ahead of others in this field is that you kind of have to position yourselves where you never don't know something, or if somebody else figures out something before you, just always have a means to go get your questions answered and figure it out maybe a little bit more than that person. It's just it's the competitive jockeying and volleying kind of in the field and in the business. And I think the one thing that I've struggled most with doing the Giants and the Jets is just that FOMO of if I'm with the Jets, that means I'm not with the Giants. So it's what are Dan Duggan and Pat Leonard and Jordan Rodon, what are they figuring out? But then if I'm at the Giants, it's on the other side. So well, what's Zach and what's Kaz and what's Samini? What are those guys figuring out that I'm not figuring out? So I mean, the ideal situation would be like find a way to clone myself to be both places at once. But aside from that, I've been loving it. You know what I mean? Like it's
joint practices, right? That was how you did it.
There you go.
Yeah.
Just constant, incessant joint practices. Like that would be the best. But other than that, man, I'm loving every second of it. Like it's cool to obviously like I kind of have, you know, my heart's obviously tied to the Jets because I've been doing them for so long, but then also to be back now learning something new and getting like a fresh set of eyes and being rejuvenated from covering the Giants. Now it's awesome. It's a dream outlet, dream come true job. Cool to do a lot more TV and stuff. So I'm loving every second of it.
Well, that's awesome, man. And congratulations, and obviously well-deserved,
Yeah,
obviously. But just the fact that you do this now and you're covering two teams and they're 7-2 and 6-3, like, how's that feel?
Oh, it's freaking awesome. Like I sent a tweet out today about that because like, dude, my entire career, like I've just covered bad football. Like honestly, that's literally been my entire career. Like the only semblance of like, there's been like three sort of examples of me covering a good team. And it was like 2015. But I was covering the Jets part-time because I was still in college at Monmouth. So I wasn't full-time on the beat yet, like on the road, but at least I got a little taste of success there, but it ended so miserably that it almost like polluted the entire, pretty much polluted the entire season before that. And then the other two examples, like when the Eagles made their Super Bowl run and when the Giants were in the playoffs in 2016, the Star Ledger sent me to the Eagles and then to the Giants to like contribute and help out the beat writers there with some extra coverage. But I didn't know those teams. Like I wasn't covering the Giants, so I didn't know them, and I wasn't covering the Eagles, so I didn't really know them. So you're just kind of like, it's almost like a freelancer. Like you're going in there and be like, oh, write a story on this or write an article on this. Like I remember writing a story about it probably being Cruz's last game with the Giants and with the Eagles. Like there were a couple assignments that I did because I was there for like 2 weeks, but it's different when it's the team that you have covered. You know what I mean? Yeah. And like I've seen it from the Jets perspective, probably more so than the Giants, because like this is my first time covering the Giants and they suddenly start winning. But from the Jets perspective, like I've seen the 2-14. I've seen like the failures of Todd Bowles, the Adam Gase, the tail end of Idzik, McHagnon, like the struggles with Joe Douglas to begin. Robert Sala's kind of up and down first year. To go through all of that and kind of see the fans struggle so much with all of that, with all of just the poor football, to now be on the other end of things where they are 6-3, half game out of first place in the AFC East. Really, now literally they control their own destiny coming out of the bye next week. I mean, it's a remarkable turnaround, and it's just fun to cover winning football. Like I made the joke today, but it's true. Like I was talking to my boss, Matt Dunn. I was talking to him about it today. Like I went from basically, actually, this is just an inside thing for you guys. Like my friends, some of my best friends from high school, like every year starting last year, I say every year, it's like a new tradition. My buddy has a house in the Poconos. So we're going to do a guys ski trip. And every single year of my career for the last 8 years, like whenever we wanted to take a vacation, whether I was going on the guys trip skiing or going with my wife, like on a trip, it was like, okay, well, season's over week 17. I can start planning my vacation week 18, week 19. Like that's the truth. Like once the playoffs started, it didn't matter. Like I could go do it. Now my buddy's texting me like, hey, so like, when are you free? I'm like, I don't know when I'm going to be free. Like, I don't know how long this is. Like, it's both of them. Like I went from I told my boss, I was like, I'm just hoping they stagger the Giants-Jets playoff game and they don't put them both on the same day, so I can cover one on Saturday, get on a flight that night, and cover the next one on Sunday.
Really no crazy way they would do that. No
I would think that. I would think there's no way they would stagger Giants. They would put Giants and Jets on the same weekend. I wouldn't think they'd do that.
Well, hopefully you're not free for that ski trip until like mid to late February.
Right? Yeah.
That'd be pretty cool. But so I got to ask you, Connor, because obviously, I mean, you mentioned it, but the Jets are 6-3. You said it. They can write their own ticket here with a big game coming up against the Pats. But before we get into that, you've been in the building, you've been around Robert Saleh, Joe Douglas for like, and we always say even the most optimistic Jets fans couldn't have predicted 6-3 at this point. Like we would have been happy with 4-5 at the bye week. But thinking back on it for you being in the building and seeing this, like, can you kind of see how this path has kind of carved itself out? And like, is there any part of you that maybe could have anticipated this as well?
No, hell no. Like, no, I didn't see 6 wins coming. Dude, no one in the Jets building saw 6 wins coming. They'd all be lying to your face. I mean, okay, they think they're going to win every single game. No, like internally, the Jets looked at this first stretch of games, like the first 10 weeks of the season, 9 games that they played. They looked at it and they would have been on cloud 9 if they found a way to win 4 games. Like that was their money number. Like they thought probably 3, but they would have felt really, really good with themselves with 4. And you would have been a snake oil salesman if you told them that they were going to get 5 wins. Like they did not see it. And it was kind of a two-headed reason for why, because they had not only a tumultuous beginning there where you're playing obviously all of the teams within your division, the AFC North, and then the Packers and the Broncos, who were supposed to be 2 pretty good teams. but it's also how young the Jets were. So they knew that they were going to take their youthful lumps these first few weeks of the season because of the fact that these were first and second year players who are still learning how to be NFL players. So it was going to be a grind to begin. So they felt like if they could fight and claw and scratch tooth and nail to find a way to like pull out 4 games, that would position themselves to potentially make a playoff run. I remember talking to people in that building when they got to 4, and I was like, dude, you guys got a chance for 5 or 6. And they're like, I don't know. You're going to jinx it. I was like, no, it's like, it's there. So now the fact that they have 6 wins at the bye, I mean, internally, they're shocked. The players, obviously, they don't know any better because of how young they are. They're like, hell yeah, we should be 9-0. But like the people that actually put this team together, they're looking at it and saying like, hell yeah. And I think what changed this and what accelerated this, it's not like there was any one little thing that happened in the building where you're like, oh my God, we realized we were good. No, it's just that the youth has developed and matured at such an accelerated rate that they took the Jets from a team that was like, okay, we're going to deal with some struggles the first half, get our bye, and then as the youth gets their experience, we'll be a much better team in the second half, to like, hell no, the Jets are a win now team. Now, I think some of like the mediocrity across the NFL, AFC, NFC has probably helped close that gap some as well. There's really only like 3 elite teams in the NFL, and the rest of those teams are around that like kind of Jets level of play. But the fact is that when you look at this roster and you see Sauce Gardner, who's a rookie and he's playing at an all-pro level, Garrett Wilson, a rookie who you can say, this guy's probably going to be a top receiver in the NFL, already one of the better receivers in the NFL. Like when you see players like that who are already so good at such a young age, it's just taken this thing and gone from, well, let's deal with our struggles in the beginning, make our noise back half, to like, no, we're making our noise now and we're only going to get better and better and better and better and better.
Yeah, no, that's great stuff. We were going to ask you like, what's the feeling inside the building, but I feel like you just summed it up well there. But going on the Sauce and Garrett Wilson topic. So I wanted the Jets to take Kayvon Thibodeau if he was there, assuming Aiden Hutchinson didn't fall. So I was very vocal about that on the show, on Twitter, whatever, writing for Badlands. It's just because there was a lot of unproven talent on the defensive line. I mean, Quinnen Williams, we saw flashes, but I'm not going to sit here and lie to you and expected him to be the player he's been this year. I was very down on him at times, and I'm sure, you've seen him up close. You've seen the flashes just like we all did, and it was just like he needs to prove it. He looks like one of the, I think outside of Aaron Donald, the best interior defensive lineman in football this year. I don't think that's hyperbole. But when they took Sauce Gardner, everyone said that Sauce was probably one of the best players in the draft. I don't think that was like questioned. But corners, especially because the Jets did sign DJ Reed, who we kind of assumed would be playing opposite Bryce Hall, which is crazy because Bryce Hall's not even active on game days. Did the Jets even think that Sauce Gardner would be this good early on, no matter what their grade was or how highly? Because I know Saleh was super hyped when they picked him, but do you think they honestly believed he'd be this good immediately?
No, they didn't see any of this coming. Like, I'm being straight on. Like I talked to guys in there. Like I talked to guys in the building. Like, no one saw this coming. Like, no, the kid is already playing at an all-pro level. Like they thought he was going to be good. They thought he was going to be a stud, but it's just like, he's already so good. Like it's wild, like what he's doing. Like, I mean, he's playing at a now I wasn't here for like prime Revis, but I've never seen a cornerback on the Jets play like this. And the kid's career is nine games, 10 weeks old. Like, no. So the Jets hoped he would be good. The Jets hoped that eventually he would be this. The way he's playing right now, this is what the Jets hoped he would eventually play like. And the fact that he's already doing it now, it's just crazy. I mean, he's so physically gifted, and he has such a confidence and swagger about him. Not arrogance, but confidence about him. But then it's also the work ethic that just takes it to the next level, where like mentally he's such a student of the game. But honestly, this like, the accelerated growth of this young team, like I think I was talking to somebody like in their building about it earlier this week or like late last week, something like that. And they were saying like, basically it was like the last, like they were kind of thinking like, all right, maybe we get to 4. Then it was maybe we get 5. But over the last like month and a half, like I think the goal for the Jets was always like, be a better team this year, play competitive football down the stretch. Like that was the goal. It wasn't playoffs. The goal, like the realistic goal, the goal for this year was play competitive football in December. Then it was playoffs in 2023. Then let's be one of the best teams in the NFL in 2024. Like that was the trajectory that they were trying to climb. Over the last month and a half, that has completely changed, where the Jets now are a legitimate playoff team. Like this isn't playoff team because they've gotten lucky, bad bounce. Like that defense is so goddamn good that they've become a playoff team now, where the trajectory of where you want to go and where you want to reach Well, now they're looking at each other saying like, okay, well, if the goal was originally competitive football, playoffs, one of the best teams in the league, we are already a playoff team now. Does that mean we can be one of the best teams in the NFL next year? Like, that's how this has accelerated. And it's players like Sauce Gardner as to why, because again, what you need to remember about guys like him, guys like Michael Carter, guys like Garrett Wilson, guys like Elijah Moore, guys like Breece Hall when he comes back from injury, look at how good they are right now and realize that players that are drafted in their first and second years, they don't really become the players they are going to be in their NFL careers until years 3 or 4. So if they are so good now in Garrett Wilson and Sauce Gardner and Mike Carter, well, Carter I don't think's elite, but like where he is now, they haven't even begun to scratch the surface of their potential. They're going to hit that stride. They're going to get to that point in years 3 and 4. So if they're already this good now, where are they going to be in years 3 and 4? Like, that's what's so unbelievable to think about. And like, if you're a Jet fan, you got to be on cloud 9 right now, just breaking that down, realizing like, forget how good we are right now. How good are we going to be when these players actually reach their potential? Because they haven't even scratched the surface yet. Like, that's what I struggle to wrap my mind around. When like I look at Sauce and I see what he's doing now, and I look at Wilson and I see what he's doing now, and you see what Moore did last year, you know he's eventually going to hit his stride. It's like, I mean, how good can they? I don't know. I have no idea how good they can be because I didn't think they'd be this good right now. You know what I mean? It's wild to think about. It really is.
Everything you're saying is putting me on cloud 9 right
I
now
know.
because I think about it all the time.
Yeah. So, Connor, if we look to this game, particularly as the Jets go to Foxborough, and you just alluded to, I mean, you really mapped it all out. Like, we all would have been ecstatic with 4 and 5 at the bye week, but now that we're here and we're at 6 and 3, and you know, I mentioned it before you jumped on, like, one of the big, monkeys that we wanted the Jets to get off their backs was getting a division win. Well, now you look at this week and it's like they have a chance to go 3-1 in the division right now and also get sole first place in the AFC, which is just crazy. But how big is this game for them? Is it just another game, or does this really obviously carry more weight considering what just happened 2 weeks ago, what happened up in Foxborough last year? Like, how big is this game for the Jets?
It's big. I mean, I think what's a little bit different is like, I don't think the Jets were embarrassed 2 weeks ago. No. You know what I mean? Like, and I think that's what I know. I shouldn't say think. I know that's what pissed the players off the most is like they were embarrassed in that 54-13 game or whatever the heck it was. And they were honestly equally butt kicked. I mean, they didn't score 50 something points, but it was also not a contest a couple when they played each other later in the season as well. I mean, it was an embarrassment to begin, but then the Patriots still had their way with the Jets in their second meeting as well. What pissed the players off wasn't that they were embarrassed the time they met like 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, whatever it is now, because of the bye, 2 weeks, whatever. Yeah. It was that they felt they won that game. Like the defense felt that they did enough to win that game. The offense felt like they positioned themselves to win that game. It was Zach Wilson's like just mental breakdown on those 3 interceptions that cost the Jets that game. Like that, the Jets lost that game because of Zach Wilson's turnovers. If Zach Wilson doesn't turn the ball over like that, the Jets are probably going to win it. And that's why Sauce Gardner, when we talked to him after the Bills game, admitted that Patriots game ate at him until Wednesday. You know what I mean? DJ Reed, when I asked him if he's thinking about the Patriots and if he's happy the Jets get the Patriots after the bye, he had the ear-to-ear grin across his face. I mean, every single one of these players wants the Patriots again. And I don't think it's because they are the Patriots. Like, I don't think it's like that kind of a rivalry. I think for a lot of these guys, they're pissed off still over the 54-13 game. But then they're also furious over the fact that they felt they should have won 2 weeks ago and they didn't. Mm-hmm. So now it's like, you know what? We want these guys. We're better than these guys. We're going to go up to their house. And we're going to kick their ass. I mean, I think they are really that amped up, that fired up, that ready to go at these guys and take these guys down. I mean, so it is absolutely a game that emotionally is kind of cranked up to a 10 or 11, where I would say that the one worry that I would have is that if the Jets do, because of how emotionally charged up they are for this one, is if they go into Foxborough and weird stuff happens and they lose the game or something just doesn't happen or the Patriots get their number or Belichick does a Belichick, then I would be worried about what that could potentially do for the rest of the year. Because like the one thing they've been focused on was like, we can get our payback with the Patriots, where if the Patriots get him again, I would worry about it long term. But the one thing I would say, like to even counter that, to kind of disagree with myself, is that I think Jets are a better team than the Patriots. They have a better defense. They have a better offense. They have better playmakers. They have a better quarterback. Like, it's like they have a better team than New England. They should beat New England. The one thing that they don't have the advantage of is coaching. And that's not a slight at Robert Saleh and his staff. It's just that Bill Belichick's the best that's ever done it. Yeah.
Exactly. I totally agree with everything you said. And the Jets let one get away. We all know it. I mean, if Zach played the way he did against Buffalo, they win that game probably by 10 points at the minimum. I truly believe that. I'm sure you do as well. Speaking of Zach, I know that you've been a little bit up and down, but I think you've also been telling Jet fans to relax, not necessarily get too high, too low about what Zach's doing. I saw some of the quotes today, specifically from Braxton, who I know is very close to Zach and has always had his back. But I thought it was interesting with Connor McGovern, because Connor McGovern kind of threw him under the bus as a rookie. I think it was after the Denver game last year. And he was defending him, saying, we all have the extreme confidence in him. What, internally, do you think the Jets believe that Zach is going to, not necessarily take a Josh Allen type leap, but some sort of leap over the final, 8 games of the season?
Well, they don't need him to. I think that's what. So what scared the Jets after that Patriots game was that they realized in that moment they have a team that's ready to win now. You know what I mean? Because I think before that Patriots game, whether it was, you can give them the Packer one, but then the Packers aren't a very good team. It was the third string Dolphins quarterback. It was a miracle in Cleveland that Zach obviously wasn't a part of. There wasn't the Denver game. He kind of just managed. Even the Packer game kind of just managed.
Pittsburgh.
Yeah, Pittsburgh. That, again, the brilliant fourth quarter, the one that we're always going to talk about, is that, also there were 3 quarters before Pittsburgh that were very, very bad. So there was a worry internally after that Patriot game of, we have a roster that is clearly ready to win now. And if this game we lost because of our quarterback, and is what just happened in New England, what we're going to have to deal with the rest of the year. Because if Zach against New England game 1 was what the Jets were going to see throughout the rest of this season against the Bills and what was going to happen is you were going to have a locker room that looked around and said, we can win. We know we can win. We know we have the players that can win. That guy over there is the reason we're not winning. What the hell? We want to win. He's the reason we're not winning. What the hell? That was a legitimate fear within the Jets building after that Patriots game. And for obvious reasons. And that's not a surprising, stunning statement, because you had a quarterback that was literally the reason why you lost the game. The best possible thing that ever could have happened for Zach Wilson was for him to deal with that game against the Patriots, try to be Superman, have it blow up in his face and be the reason why his team lost. And 7 days later, go up against a better team in the Buffalo Bills and play the exact style of quarterback that the Jets want from him right now. And to be honest, they would take this style of play moving forward, because they want to basically be the San Francisco 49ers. And you see the San Francisco 49ers winning with Jimmy Garoppolo. They flashed the number last night. He's 10-0 when he doesn't throw a touchdown pass. When you have a defense like San Francisco and the playmakers around the quarterback like you have in San Francisco, all you need is a game manager. The Jets are trying to build the same thing with Zach Wilson, where all he needs to do is be a game manager, then whip out that random off script ability when he has to, when they need a play, but just play within the structure of the offense. So for Zach to go against New England, be such a disaster and be the reason they lost, and have people going, oh no, is this what we're going to have to basically, that's the first time really that they asked him to throw a substantial amount of time since that fourth quarter in Pittsburgh. And this is what happened. It was all right, well, we kind of kept kept the training wheels on, kept the handcuffs on those first few weeks. Now we needed him to make some plays. And oh my God, this is if this can't be what goes forward. So for him to go from that to 7 days later against the Bills, a better team, play within the structure of the offense, play controlled, play disciplined, strike when he had to strike, and not have the Jets beat the Bills in spite of Wilson, but as him managing the game, have him make plays while managing the game to be the reason why the Jets won. Whether it was the first down scramble or the strike to Denzel Mims. He was one of the key reasons why the Jets won that game, not just because he didn't do anything to cost the Jets the game. For him to have that right on the heels of that Patriots game, it was one of the most important things, both for his teammates to build confidence in him, for Zach to find that confidence within himself again, for the coaching staff to have confidence in him, to be okay. And I said it a little bit ago, or yesterday, I said it on SNY's Post Plus show, is that now the key is for Zach to take that Bills game Command C, and then Command V, 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 V the rest of the way. Like that is what they want, because the Jets have a team that is built to win now. They just can't have the quarterback that sinks the ship. So all Zach needs to do is he doesn't need to be captain. He just needs to be one of the crewmen. Like that's all he has to do the rest of the way, because the Jets are good enough to win games with a game manager. So as long as Zach does that, the Jets are going to be good. And because he was able to do it against the Bills, I think that was the realization of like, this is what I have to be. This works. Let me be this. And I hope you will see that the rest of the way. And if you do, the Jets are going to be in great shape.
Yeah, and I think the best play of the game against Buffalo is after Denzel Mims converts that play on third and goal, takes the sack. Mm-hmm. Exactly. Yeah. I felt like in the New England game, he would have threw an interception in the red zone, and then New England would have drove,
scrambled around, fumbled, run backwards. Yep. Yeah, exactly. Like you got to realize when the play is dead, and he did. And you know, the one thing I will say about Zach, and I think it's what he will internally struggle with some, or might have struggled with some in that Patriots game, is he looks around that offense and he sees how good so many of the other players already are. He looks on the defense and he sees how good so many of these other players are. And Zach Wilson is just not at a point in his career right now where he is going to be the all-star on offense. And he's not going to be the one for 400 yards and 5 touchdowns a game, because he's not at that point in his development. And that's perfectly okay. I said this a little bit ago. That is perfectly okay. Just because these other rookies and these other second-year players have developed at such an astronomical rate, that doesn't mean that Zach Wilson is supposed to develop at an astronomical rate either. I mean, he is better than he was his rookie year. He's taken steps forward. And for a lot of young quarterbacks, it takes until year 3. So for Zach Wilson right now, what he needs to realize is that he doesn't need to develop at their same rate. He just can't hold them back. And against the Bills, he didn't hold them back. And that's all he has to do the rest of the way, is let those guys be the stars right now as you continue to grow and you continue to mature and you continue to develop. Do that for this team right now. And they're going to be in perfect shape, really, really good shape. He just needs to keep doing that and continue to take those steps forward. That's just stick to the script, and he'll be fine. And the Jets will be fine.
So, Connor, sticking on the Zach subject, and you guys pointed out, obviously, the sack being a good play where he took that and he didn't force the ball or whatever, and, turnover, nothing like that. So that was great. The 2 plays that Robert Saleh actually highlighted, which I think was really great for Jets fans to hear, were the third down conversions with his legs. So that's been a point of frustration, I think, for Jets fans, especially when you kind of freeze frame that throw from the New England game to Tyler Conklin on the 4th and 5. It's like you see the field wide open in front of him. He probably could have run it in for a touchdown. Has that been a point of emphasis for this coaching staff with Zach, is to use his legs a little more, to take what's there and still obviously be safe, but, use those legs to gain first downs and gain yards when they're there, as opposed to always continuously looking downfield? Do you know that, or is it just?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a weird little balance, right? Because you also don't want him to take the extra hits. I mean, I don't think it's an insult to say that Zach isn't exactly like the most durable quarterback in the NFL, right? I mean, and that's not just with the Jets. I mean, he dealt with injuries when he was in college. He's dealt with injuries his first 2 years in the NFL. I mean, the game against the Patriots, I mean, he got hurt when he was scrambling and fighting for extra yards. So it's like that happy, healthy medium where like you need to find where it's like when you can scramble and pick up 6 or 7 yards, pick up the 6 or 7 yards, then get down. Like you can scramble and avoid the hits, like get down and avoid the hits. Like that's what you want to do. So it's like you want him to use his legs as a weapon, but I don't think the Jets are ever going to turn this into like what the Bears are doing with Justin Fields, right? I mean, where they're using him as a runner. Like, I don't think that's what they're going to do, because they do want to protect him, but also use him as a weapon. So I think that Bills game was that happy medium where I think it was like 5 rushes, 24 yards. So he used his legs as a weapon, but it wasn't like it was like one read run. You know what I mean? Like the old Mike Vick when he was with the Falcons, where it was like one read, not open run, one read, one read, run. No. You want to take it when it's there and use it when it's there. And if it's the safe alternative where you can get 5, 6, 10 yards, do it. But it's like you got to find that balance. And I think the Jets were able to find it against the Bills. And I'm fascinated to see if they're going to continue it with the Patriots. Because again, like you want to use it because it is a weapon, but you also don't want it to lead to durability issues and have him come off the field, because Zach off the field is obviously not going to help anybody.
Yeah, for sure. Connor, we really appreciate you joining the show. I don't know if you're allowed to do game picks, because I know you write articles, and I think
I can. Yeah.
Oh, you can? Okay.
Yeah.
So before we do game picks, because Steve and I do that every week, really quickly, what are your thoughts on Elijah Moore? Do you think moving into the slot is going to get him going? Do you think he's going to be more involved in the game plan? And then we'll move to game picks.
I don't know what's wrong with Moore. Like, I don't like it's so weird, because like what made him, the way that the Jets were using him last year, where he had that tremendous stretch before getting hurt and landed on the IR. I mean, that's how they were using him to begin the year. And I think, I don't think it was I don't think Moore was not getting open during that stretch, right? Like I don't think it was that. I think it was just the Jets for, the Bronco game and the Dolphin game and the Packer game, they just weren't throwing the ball. Like Zach was throwing it under 20 times a game. So if you're throwing it, or under 25 times a game, it's only so many passes that are going to be out there. And the Jets aren't just a one weapon team. They have a number of guys where they can throw to guys out of the backfield. They got 2 tight ends, 3 wide receivers, right? So it wasn't that like Elijah Moore wasn't getting any targets. It was that, he wasn't getting, no one really was. Like the leader in targets was seeing like 4 or 5 passes a game. Look at how many times like Justin Jefferson's seeing balls, or things like that, like teams that are actually throwing it 35, 40 times a game. The Jets just weren't that. They were running the ball. So it was weird to see like no one really getting targets, no one really putting up numbers, then Elijah Moore being like, get me out of here. So I did spend a little bit more time watching him against the Bills. And there were a couple of times where he was open. Like he ran routes where he was open. Zach just went to other guys, and those other guys, he went to them successfully for more yards. So I don't really know what it is. Maybe moving him inside is going to work, but that's not how the Jets viewed him when they drafted him. That was me. Like I was like, oh, he's a slot receiver. He's a slot receiver. He's a slot receiver. That's not what the Jets thought when they took him. Like when they took him and then they drafted Garrett Wilson, the way that they envisioned their receiving trio was basically a recreation of the LA Rams, where Corey Davis was going to be their Robert Woods. And then Elijah Moore was going to be their Brandon Cooks when Cooks was with the Rams. And then Garrett Wilson was going to be their Cooper Kupp. And if you know about Cooper Kupp, he plays the majority of his time, like 85, 90% of his snaps in the slot. So they were like, Garrett Wilson's going to be our slot Cooper Kupp with more outside flexibility. We're going to have Elijah Moore as our outside Brandon Cooks, and then we're going to have Corey Davis as our physical Robert Woods. Like that was going to be their 3 receivers. And they thought it was going to work great because that's what Elijah Moore did. That Brandon Cooks role is exactly what Elijah Moore did last year. He was seeing his targets when Flacco was in. Wilson then replaced Flacco. They started running the ball. The targets weren't there. And then I think it just became like a mental funk, like upset he's not getting targets, checking out, like that kind of a thing. So now the Jets are trying to jumpstart him and they're putting him in the slots. It's funky, man. I don't know if the Jets totally know why it's not working. I don't think Elijah Moore totally knows why it's not working. I don't totally know why it's not working. I think it could be fixed if the Jets had an offense that was throwing the ball 35, 40 times a game and he was seeing 8 to 9 targets and Garrett Wilson was seeing 10 and Corey Davis was seeing 5, plus then you spitter spatter with everyone else. But like, that's just not the scheme that the Jets are running because they don't have a quarterback that at this stage in his development is ready to be throwing 35, 40, 45 times a game. They just don't. Maybe next year, maybe the year after, but right now they don't. So you would think that Elijah Moore would be totally okay because the Jets are winning football games. So the fact that he's not and like freaking out, it's like, honestly, it's a storyline and it's a development that I just did not see coming. And it's like so hard to analyze and critique because it's like you don't like it's puzzling. It's really, really. I'm honestly like there's words, but like it's so hard to explain it or find a fix because like I don't know what the fix is. And obviously the Jets, by moving him inside to the slot more, they're trying to figure it out too on the fly as well.
Yeah,
it's crazy
like that they're trying.
Yeah. But it's crazy that it comes when the Jets are winning, like you said. So it's just really out of the blue for someone to complain about not getting touches when they were on, at the time, they're on a 3 or 4 game winning streak. But it's weird, too, that, the slot thing to kind of, fix this when in reality, like you, Connor, you kind of alluded to it, but early in his rookie year, I remember there was a discourse on Twitter where Jets Twitter was like upset that they were going to put him in the slot. And they're like, he's not just a slot guy. He can be an outside guy.
DJ led that charge.
Yes, right.
So,
so it's weird that like, them moving him back to the slot is supposed to fix this, but we'll see. But,
it's targets. That's the problem. They're not throwing it to him. It doesn't matter if he's in the slot or outside. They're not throwing him the ball. But they're not throwing him the ball because before like the last couple for the Patriot game, they weren't throwing anyone the ball. Like they were a run first and second team, really. Like that's what they were doing. So no one was getting passes. So it's like it's very confusing because it's like if this is what's leading to wins, why change? You're not going to change it up to make Elijah Moore happy. No. Like that's not going to happen. So it's like it's very confusing.
For sure. Okay, game picks time, and then we can wrap it. So Steven, I'm going to go give it to you. I'll pick, and then we'll have Connor conclude with the game pick section. So Steven, what do you think? What's happened on Sunday?
All right. Well, Connor's got me amped up with how much this game actually means to the Jets, but I was going to go this way anyway. I really do. Historically, I don't think the Jets have been great after the bye, but I just have a different feeling. I think that Zach comes out, he plays within structure. I think he plays well. I think he throws for just over 200 yards, gets a touchdown in there. I think the running game is strong, but I honestly feel good about this game, which is always scary to say as a Jets fan going into New England. But I think the road warrior kind of thing continues. I think the fourth quarter, how good the Jets have been in the fourth quarter, I think that holds strong as well. I think the Jets pull this out in somewhat convincing fashion. I'll say 24-13 Jets.
Okay, I'm similar. I would say 24-10 Jets. I think that hopefully they wear the white uniforms, black pants, because it seems like that's the trick of how they win games. I also think Zach's going to play, within structure, similar to Buffalo. I think he throws for like 230, 2 touchdowns. He doesn't throw an interception, maybe a fumble or whatnot. I think the defense is just as strong as it was the first time they played. And I think they're able to run the ball more effectively. And that's going to be the difference in this game, because that was really a problem against New England last time. So I'm excited. Connor.
Yeah, I think it's probably going to be ugly. Like, I don't think that the Jets offense is going to light up the Patriots defense, but I just don't think Mac Jones is any good. And this Jets defense is going to be fired up. They're going to be pissed off, and they're going to play lights out. Like, I think they're a top 3 defense in the NFL. I think when they are on and really firing on all cylinders, they are the best defense in the NFL. So I think this one's going to be 16-13 Jets. It's going to be close. It's going to be ugly. It's going to be a defensive contest, but I think the Jets pull it out.
I love to hear that.
Right.
You're going to be there. You're going up to Foxborough.
Yeah. So I've got Jets this week, Giants on Thanksgiving, then Jets on Sunday, and then I forget who I have after that. I think it might be Giants, Washington. I got to check my schedule. I got to figure it out. But yeah, I've got the Jets next 2, because I got them this Sunday, and then I got them the next Sunday with the Giants on Thursday. Double duty that week.
Yeah. Before I give you your plugs, how was being back with DJ? Did you miss him?
I did miss him. I love DJ, man. That kid was great. I loved him the moment he came in. He made the beat fun. I definitely miss him. I miss that kid all the time.
Love to hear that. Connor, it's been awesome. We really appreciate you coming on. If you don't already, follow Connor on Twitter, Connor_J_Hughes. Catch him on SNY. You can catch him all over the place. When is the new pod coming out? Because I know you don't really do that anymore.
We're working on it. Yeah, so we're working on it. That's something. It's going to be coming. I don't have the specifics yet. I think it's they're working on getting podcast producers and things like that. So there will be a podcast coming. I see everyone who tweets me about where's the podcast, where a podcast. I'm working on some stuff right now on Instagram that'll probably be coming. Like, probably do some lives there. I just need to get clearance from work to make sure that that's okay. But once I get the clearance from there, I'll have Instagram lives that'll come in place of a podcast until we probably get a podcast fired up and going, but it's something we're talking about. I know it's definitely in discussion, and I know it's going to happen. It's just a matter of when.
Awesome. Love to hear that. And make sure to subscribe to our show on Apple, Turn the Jets Live, on Spotify, also on YouTube, youtube.com/TurnTheJetsTV. And also, if you haven't already, become a Badlands Patreon subscriber. Best premium content. I know Connor's been on that show. I know he loves Turn to the Jets Joe, as he'll say. I've heard you say that on the live streams. And we appreciate all the support, and